The morning of my wedding smelled like roses, hairspray, and something sharp beneath it all, anticipation mixed with dread. I stood in front of the mirror, my hands trembling as I adjusted the delicate lace around my shoulders. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, the day I had dreamed about since I was a little girl. But deep down, I knew my mother would find a way to turn it into something else. She always did. Still, I told myself today would be different. Today, I had love on my side, a man waiting at the altar who saw me for who I truly was. I tried to hold on to that thought as the door creaked open behind me. She stepped in like she owned the moment, and maybe she thought she did. My mother wore white, not ivory, not cream, but stark, blinding white that shimmered under the lights. For a second, I thought my eyes were deceiving me, that maybe stress had warped my perception. But no, she had chosen a gown that looked like a rival bride's dress, complete with beading and a long flowing train. My chest tightened as she smiled at my reflection, her lips curling with satisfaction. "Oh honey," she said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness, "I just thought I'd show you how it's really done." The room went silent, but she didn't stop there. She circled me slowly, her gaze scanning every inch of my body like she was judging a flawed sculpture. "That dress," she added, tugging lightly at the fabric near my waist, "isn't exactly forgiving, is it? You should have picked something that hides, well, everything." A quiet laugh slipped from her lips, sharp enough to cut through the fragile calm I had built. I felt my cheeks burn, my throat tighten, but I refused to cry. Not today, not in front of her. Memories flooded back without warning, years of comments, comparisons, little digs disguised as concern. Every birthday, every holiday, every milestone had been overshadowed by her need to remind me I wasn't enough. Too big, too plain, too emotional, too sensitive. Today was just another stage for her performance. But this time, there was an audience. Bridesmaids exchanged uncomfortable glances, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent. I caught my reflection again and saw not the confident bride I had imagined, but a girl shrinking under her mother's words. I turned to face her, my voice steadier than I felt. "Why would you do this?" I asked quietly. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, surprise, maybe, or annoyance that I dared to question her. Then it vanished, replaced by the same cold amusement. "Because someone has to keep you grounded," she replied. "You've always had a tendency to think you're more special than you are." The words hit harder than I expected, but before I could respond, another voice cut through the tension. "Enough." My grandmother stood at the doorway, her presence commanding in a way that made the entire room shift. She wasn't loud, but she didn't need to be. Her eyes locked onto my mother, and for the first time that morning, I saw uncertainty creep across my mother's face. Grandma walked in slowly, holding a small, worn envelope in her hand. "I was going to wait," she said, her voice calm but firm. "But it seems this can't wait any longer." My mother scoffed, crossing her arms. "What is this, another lecture?" she snapped. But Grandma didn't respond to the insult. Instead, she turned to me, her expression softening. "Sweetheart, this is for you," she said, placing the letter in my hands. The paper felt fragile, like it carried more than just words. I hesitated, glancing between the two women who had shaped my life in such different ways. "Read it," Grandma urged gently. My fingers trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, the ink slightly faded but still clear. I recognized the handwriting instantly. It wasn't Grandma's. My breath caught as I realized who it belonged to. My father. The man who had left when I was young, whose absence had been another weapon my mother used against me. I had spent years believing he walked away without a second thought. But as I began to read, the truth unfolded in a way I never expected. The words told a different story. One of love, regret, and a desperate fight to stay in my life. He wrote about the day he was forced out, about the lies that had been told, about the promises he made to never stop loving me even if he couldn't be there. Each sentence chipped away at the version of reality I had been fed for years. My vision blurred as tears filled my eyes, but I kept reading, needing to understand, needing to know. When I finally looked up, the room felt heavier, charged with something undeniable. My mother's composure had cracked, just slightly, but enough for everyone to see. "That letter is meaningless," she said quickly, her voice no longer as steady as before. "He abandoned you. Don't let this nonsense ruin your day." But it was too late. The truth had already begun to settle in, reshaping everything I thought I knew. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I saw not just the woman who raised me, but the one who had controlled the narrative of my life. My grip on the letter tightened as a new feeling rose within me, not sadness, not even anger, but clarity. And in that moment, I knew this wedding wasn't just the start of a new chapter. It was the end of something that had been holding me back for far too long. The ceremony continued, but everything had changed. As I walked down the aisle, the letter still clutched in my hand, I felt lighter in a way I couldn't fully explain. The weight of years of doubt and quiet hurt had begun to lift, replaced by a fragile but growing sense of truth. My fiancé's eyes met mine, filled with concern and love, and I realized that for the first time, I wasn't walking toward a future defined by my mother's voice. I was walking toward one I could define for myself. When the vows were exchanged, my voice didn't tremble. It carried strength, honesty, and a quiet promise to never let anyone diminish me again. The guests applauded, but there was an undercurrent in the room, a tension that hadn't fully dissipated. Everyone had seen what happened earlier. Everyone was waiting to see what would come next. At the reception, my mother tried to reclaim control. She laughed louder than necessary, drew attention to herself, and even made a speech that danced dangerously close to another insult. Raising her wasn't easy, she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. But I suppose she turned out, all right. A few awkward chuckles followed, but most people shifted uncomfortably. They had heard enough. Then my grandmother stood again. She didn't raise her voice, but the room fell silent as if commanded. "I think it's time we hear the rest," she said, her gaze fixed on my mother. The envelope was still in my hand, but Grandma held another sheet of paper now, one I hadn't seen before. My heart began to race as she unfolded it carefully. "This," she continued, "is a letter your father wrote to me after he was forced out. He wanted someone to know the truth, in case one day you were ready to hear it." My mother's face went pale, the color draining so quickly it was almost shocking. "You don't have to do this," she said sharply, but there was a hint of panic in her tone now. Grandma didn't stop. She began to read aloud, her voice steady and unwavering. The words painted a picture of manipulation, of control, of a woman who had carefully constructed a version of events that kept her at the center and everyone else in the shadows. He wrote about the threats, the ultimatums, the way he was pushed out and then erased. Each sentence landed like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples through the room. Gasps echoed as the truth settled over the guests. My mother shook her head, muttering denials under her breath, but no one was listening anymore. For years, she had controlled the narrative. Now, she was losing it in front of everyone. I felt a strange calm wash over me. The anger I thought I would feel wasn't there. Instead, there was a sense of release, like a door had finally been opened after being locked for too long. I looked at my mother, really looked at her, and saw not power, but desperation. The illusion she had built was crumbling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. When Grandma finished reading, she folded the letter carefully and placed it on the table. The silence that followed was heavy, but it wasn't suffocating anymore. It was freeing. My mother stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, her voice cracking. "You're all choosing to believe lies over me." But no one responded. Not a single person moved to comfort her or defend her. The isolation she had created for others had come back to her. I took a step forward, my heart steady. "No," I said quietly. "We're choosing the truth." Her eyes met mine, searching for something, fear, doubt, weakness. But she found none. For the first time in my life, I wasn't shrinking under her gaze. I was standing tall, grounded in something real. "You tried to make me feel small my entire life," I continued, my voice calm but firm. "But today, you don't get to do that anymore. Not here, not ever again." She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. The power she once held over me was gone, replaced by something she couldn't control. And just like that, it was over. The rest of the evening felt different, lighter, brighter, filled with genuine laughter and warmth. People came up to me, offering quiet words of support, but I realized I didn't need validation anymore. I had something far more important, the truth and the strength to stand in it. As the night came to an end, I found my grandmother sitting quietly, watching everything with a soft smile. I sat beside her, taking her hand in mine. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. She squeezed my hand gently. "You deserve to know," she said simply. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't before. Family isn't about who tries to control you or tear you down. It's about who stands beside you, Even when it's hard, even when the truth is painful. I looked around at the people who remained, the ones who chose love over illusion, and felt a deep sense of peace settle within me. My wedding day hadn't gone the way I imagined. It had been messier, more painful, more revealing. But it had also given me something I never thought I'd have. Freedom.